Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish. It makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I'm your host, Nelia Hutt, and I am so grateful that you have come back again for another episode. I have had some amazing guests on this show, and today, here we've got another one. We've got Sterling Shrout on the show. Nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
Good. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You're the one who's coming on, so I appreciate the time. So just to dive right in today, I'm excited to speak with Sterling. So Sterling, he was homeless, addicted, and convicted over the past decade. He has transformed his life in less than 1 year during the global pandemic after finding a love for himself, his family, education, multifamily, real estate, and freedom. I love this so much. I'm already like smiling. From a renter to a homeowner and landlord, handyman to business owner, and multimember LLC partner. From struggling to now helping others by teaching the importance of relationships, financial literacy, education, vision, and taking care of your mind, body, and spirit so that you can do what it takes to thrive. And don't we all need to learn how to do this? So very well, warm welcome to you, Sterling. Where are you tuning in from?
So I'm in Dayton, Ohio.
Awesome. I've never been.
It's okay. Yeah.
Well,
it's not a top travel spot, so yeah.
I like where I live, so there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be powerful. So can you just, start from the beginning? I know today we're going to be talking about the importance of self-worth, having a why. We're also going to be talking about vision planning, goal setting, the importance of short-term and long-term goals, and just getting the most out of our life, So how did this all start? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, I was born in Ohio, lived here for a while. I think I was 10 to 11 years old. I moved out to Montana, and I lived there until out of high school. But there was a lot of great stuff looking back that came from there because it's the middle of nowhere, the mountains, hunting, fishing, snowboarding, all kinds of activities. But there was a lot of things that, I wasn't exposed to, or I didn't develop certain skills or different things that made the rest of the journey real interesting. So I moved out there, let's say 11. By 15, I had started selling drugs. I was partying in high school. Got involved with a questionable crowd, but started selling weed specifically. And then I got busted for that. It didn't take very long. Got busted for that. It was a pound of weed and miscellaneous other charges. But that got me probation until I was 21. I didn't excel at probation either, but I managed to get off when I turned 18. So that they had a kind of backwards program. If I dropped out and got my GED, I could get off at 18. If I graduated, it would have been 21. So I dropped out, I got my GED, get off probation, and decided to move back to Ohio. I still had family. This is actually where all my family lives. But when I came back at 18, I hadn't changed anything in my routines, my habits, using drugs, anything like that. So I came back here. There were still kids I kind of knew and kind of loosely kept in touch with. And I moved back here and they're selling drugs. And I was like, oh, I know that game. So I started doing that with them. It didn't take long. I guess I was naturally good at it, or at least entrepreneurial in some illegal way. And I quickly became the one that sold them drugs. And, yet again, it didn't take super long. When I was 19, I got my, door kicked in, raided by a Allied Combined Task Force. I was selling ecstasy, party drugs, marijuana, things like that. So 19, I got busted, and indicted, fought the case for a little bit, and I ended up getting 3 years in prison at age 20, or I went, right when I turned 20. And that was 3 years mandatory, no good days, anything like that. And I went to a medium minimum camp. And I hadn't had much like jail experience. That was a really depressing time because, initially, because they wanted me to tell on somebody else, they were kind of blowing smoke to some extent. Like, legally, technically, I was facing 64 years if they maxed everything out. They indicted me on crazy, engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, running a drug ring type charges. And so I guess it's crazy who you ask, but I think they were inflated, and that's kind of how the system works. To plead out. So ultimately I pled out to aggravated trafficking, aggravated possession, and possession of a dangerous ordinance. And so I spent those 3 years, 20 to 23, locked up. That I don't recommend that for a developing mind or young adult. That's a completely different environment. I wouldn't call it like normal society, social interactions. So that I also wasn't on a path of like growth in there. I wasn't in there like, oh, I have all this time to read. It was not like the that. Movies. No. There's a lot more fighting and drinking and tattoos and just something to make you forget you're in there, kind of. So yeah, we'll fast forward through that and get out 4 days after I turned 23. And I didn't actually know what to expect. Obviously, I'd never done it before. Even though I was a felon as a juvenile, that hadn't counted as an adult. Well, now at 23, it definitely counts as an adult. And I didn't know how to exist as a felon, especially a felon when all your charges start with, aggravated or dangerous. And even though there wasn't violence to those crimes, it was the amount of drugs.
Okay.
That 99 out of 100 people don't put that connection together, that it's, the amount and not, somebody got hurt. So I get out of prison, and, I had sincere intentions to get a job, just work, pay bills, try to get somewhere. I quickly realized that I wasn't a prime candidate to be hired with that kind of record, and I didn't yet have skills to like earn money. So I remember like one specific time I decided, and nothing against anybody that works fast food, but for me, I thought that, I had something else I should be doing, but I need a job. I have to have a job. I've got basically a parole officer. I moved in with my mother, had nothing, and I was like, I'm gonna go get a job at fast food. And I went and I applied at a Chipotle burrito, and they couldn't hire me because of my record. I was like, oh, well, I give up. Like, I'm done trying. So after that, I kind of, started hanging out with the people I'd hung out with before. But I didn't want to sell drugs anymore because the time that came with it was just extreme. So I just started using drugs, and this is like mid heroin epidemic. And I know we mentioned Dayton, Ohio, for a really long time here in the U.S. coast to coast. Dayton, Ohio, Montgomery County specifically was setting the bar for opiate overdoses. And so the full height of the opioid pandemic was out, and this is 2014 now. And yeah, I fell straight into that. I had tried heroin prior to getting incarcerated, while I was, fighting the case, so to say. I remember that feeling it gave me, and that was something of numbing to, the anxiety, to like, because it's really scary, honestly. It's a very intimidating thing, and that was like the only drug that would make that stop. So kind of went back to that, and there was a lot of fear or shame or whatever after prison as well, and that's, I think, why I fell back into that drug. So yeah, 23, 24, 25, abuse drugs, go to a Salvation, homelessness, sleeping in abandoned houses, like running the gamut with it, petty thefts, stealing to feed my addiction, just everything that comes with, being strung out. Go to a Salvation Army rehab down in Florida, partially to escape some petty charge here, and then actually fully to escape some petty charge here. It was nothing to do with getting better. But
Thank
while I
you
was
for being
there,
honest.
yeah, and I try my best. So sorry if I have to go back, but I realize, that's of course my ego trying to like, oh, it sounds better. So I have to, get over that and just tell the truth. So yeah, I go down there. There's examples of people down there, and I'd never seen this. Somebody from a situation like mine, not necessarily advantaged, felon on probation, parole, but they had got their stuff together. And so seeing that firsthand, it's like something clicks, like, oh, it actually technically can be done. Still couldn't figure it out, but knew it could be done.
Some hope there.
Yeah. So I managed to stay sober for, I think I got 2 years down there, and then relapsed. I ended up working for them, really getting involved with recovery down there. And then I relapsed down there, somehow made it to Georgia, from Georgia up to Ohio, relapsed here. I'm trying to skip ahead, but the last time I used was August 9th, 2019. My son was born in February of 2019, and I'd managed to stay sober for a while there, get off probation. I ended up back on probation up here, and it's definitely a cycle thing. So I got off probation. My son was born. Stayed sober for a while, and actually got on Suboxone, like medically assisted treatment to stay sober. And I'd gotten off of that for a couple of weeks and started using. And now, the vast majority of street opiates are fentanyl. And so I knew it was dangerous, and I had the genius idea to counter it with an upper and whatever, stupid thoughts. But yeah, so I used for a couple weeks in August, or at the beginning of August. Ended with a overdose in a Taco Bell drive-through. I dropped the kids off at my mom's, went to go get them food, thought that was a convenient time. And it was some new stuff I got from some new person. It was like instantaneous. I did a tiny bit to try to be careful. And that meant nothing. It stopped my animation like immediately. Had my dog in the car. By the time somebody found me, and then they got through the dog to get to me, I didn't come back till we were at the hospital. And that was something, like, I have a vivid memory of that experience, and not like
enough to scare you.
Yeah, enough to make me realize that that would probably happen again if I kept going, because everything else did. If I could get to homelessness once, I could get there twice as fast the next time. If I could start stealing once, I'd get there 3 times as fast the next time. Once you set those new levels of what's acceptable, it's real easy to go back to that. IVs, I'd never use a needle, then I'd use a needle, then I'd only use a needle, things like that. But yeah, I really didn't want to leave my kids or my family, but especially without doing anything positive. Because that would not destine them to a similar situation, but the odds wouldn't be in their favor. So after that, decided since I'm, actively going to be here, should probably figure out something to do with it. And, just started trying after that. Eventually heard a podcast, which led to audiobooks and a nonprofit and education. And then everything started to change. So yeah, that's the background.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know it's not always easy, but you've probably told it a few times now, and it probably gets easier in one way, but it still hurts, right? It still reminds you of some of the things, but it also shows you how far you've come, right?
Yeah.
And so 2 years, over 2 years.
Yeah, we're over 2 years now.
That's great. That's huge.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't want to say I don't. Yeah, it's definitely huge. I'll say I don't put as much emphasis on it as I used to in early recovery.
Okay.
But I still, deal with addiction recovery and things like that. But the progress, I try not to look back as much as move forward. So.
That's great.
I didn't mean to shut that down. Sorry.
No, I love that so
Thank
much.
you.
It's true, right? I mean, we can, stay in the past, or we can do something different. I have a question about when you were talking in the beginning about the early stages, and you were 18 and you were in that program, and you come out and it's the same people doing the same things. There's a lot of broken programs, because I hear this a lot, and they don't really help with the transitioning of coming out or putting you in a different situation, so that when you go through the program and you come back out, do you find that that's true? I mean, you have more experience with that than I do. Do you think that maybe they could have prepared you better than coming out and being in the same environment?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. So I've done most of the traditional recovery programs, cognitive behavioral therapy, smart recovery, AA, NA, multiple inpatients, most of the stuff court ordered. I skipped over a lot of things, but yeah, there's a lot missing out that I think needs to be addressed, like basic life skills. So, while I talk about finances a ton, and it's not, I don't feel the need to get like an Andrew Carnegie, level of success and financial means. If you don't know how money works, if you don't know how to budget, if you don't know like super basic accounting, how to plan for the future, care for yourself in the future financially, things like that. Like there's some really big gaps. I think that poverty doesn't set anybody up for super great things. It's a lot easier to stand on your own 2 feet when you can also stand on your own 2 feet financially, than understanding relationships, the importance of relationships, and that who you hang out with is generally what you're like, or you will be influenced by the people you surround yourself with, and that's we're social creatures. I don't think we can help it. Yeah, there's a lot of things I think that are missing from traditional programs, and I think that this is something I kind of want to say. I think we focus on the drugs too much, and that was always my issue.
Not the why?
Yeah, we focus on the problem a lot more than the solution in these programs.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that will really open people's eyes. And when you do say it, it's like, yeah, I agree with that, but sometimes unless you hear it, you don't think it.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to address it. I'm not, I don't mean to pretend there's no problems. Definitely drug addiction's real. It's very real, but the solution is extremely important.
But isn't there sorry to interrupt you, isn't there sort of 3 things that they should really work on? Like, how did you get here? Like what is yes, the drugs is the aftermath, but that's not what started. Like sometimes, there's reasons why people get addicted to things, whether it's sex addiction, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. And I think you got to deal with where is this coming from, and then deal with the drugs, and then the solutions, right? Because if you only deal with the substance at hand, you're going to end up in the same place, I think. you're not really, I don't know how to say this. Like
You have to heal the person.
yeah, like there's
That's
more
what it is.
to it than just like you could substitute the drugs for anything. It could have been something
Yeah.
else. It could have been, but the issue, or some people will exchange it for something else because the problem is still there, right? It's still underlying.
Yeah, I think the majority of people, and I give a shout out to him. There's a guy named Jesse Harless. Um, I met him through a nonprofit and the work they do, and he came in and said some stuff, and I've had the privilege to talk to him. But he was a former addict, and one of the things that he said is like he's thankful that his addiction was a drug addiction because it brought him to a point that it had to be addressed really quickly.
Okay.
Over a few years compared to, I think a lot of people have addictions that they don't ever have to address. If it's shopping, if it's TV, if it's, like you said, like sex or relationship, or there's a lot of different avenues for addiction.
Mm.
And with drugs, you have to address it pretty quick, or else it's,
It can kill you.
yeah, it gets addressed one way or the other. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. No, I appreciate that. So, okay, on this show, we like to talk about self-worth. So, how do you feel about yourself now compared to before? And what do you think was the biggest factor to change that?
So, yeah, for me, self-worth was, non-existent. I honestly never saw any type of future for myself. And I think being able to see a future for yourself, or how you feel about, where you're going, or just yourself in general. Yeah, that wasn't a thing. It definitely wasn't a good thing, at least. So for me, the self-worth started to come into play when other people started to, when I started to see my worth through how other people saw me.
Mm.
So when I overdosed, the guy I worked for, I never expected this reaction from. I think I've only ever mentioned this like once. Um, I showed up the next day to work, and obviously the previous day I hadn't gone, um, and told him what happened, and he started to cry. It's like,
Oh,
grown ass like military dude. Um, never,
they're the best. Those bear
never
guys,
seen,
they're the best.
yeah, never seen this dude cry. This dude's, seen some
Or
stuff.
yeah.
And I was like, it messed me up because I'm like, I didn't even have any realization that he cared about me.
Mm.
Um, Besides that, I, showed up for work.
Right.
And just his reaction with that, kind of, I didn't know how to take it. I wasn't used to compassion necessarily.
Mm.
And so, that was like the initial moment that kind of made me wonder. And then moving forward, there's other people that came into my life that just were encouraging. Saw that, I don't know if they, believed it or not, or it doesn't matter, but they thought that I had potential to do, whatever I set out to do. And seeing that in other people, um, I started to believe it, or seeing that from other people about me, I started to slightly take that in. And then, my kids love me, or my family. These little things, I started to borrow, if these people love me, there has to be some reason. And that starts to build up. And I think you have to, it might start in these little slivers, but once you start to build on that, I think it builds quicker. And that's where I developed, initially developed my self-worth. And then through action, through setting a goal, accomplishing it, um, those things are what built my own self-worth up.
Yeah. When you don't have anything new to look forward to, and you don't see your future as being any different than what it is right now, it's hard to have something to be excited about. You just assume things are going to be the same. It doesn't really give you hope or wanting to move forward. And like who is like, I don't like where I'm at, but I know it's always going to be kind of like that, right? So when you don't have hope, it's everything, I think.
Yeah.
I hear, sorry, go ahead.
That's fine.
I hear a lot of times how one person can make such a difference. I hear it over and over on with guests that I speak to, and how, sometimes it's this one unexpected person. And for you, it was this hardcore dude, at work, And honestly, that's all it takes. And we talk a lot about on the show about why can't, each one of us be that person for somebody else, like be observant. You don't know, how one small thing can change someone's life, whether it's, one time I was, there was a gentleman and I didn't realize he was going to take his life, and didn't know this person, was walking on the street. And I just kind of, I don't know, something about him just attracted me to him. And I just stopped and talked to him for a minute. We started talking 10, 15 minutes later about nothing. I don't even remember his name. And yeah, we stopped talking and he kind of went in the other direction that he was walking when we first started talking. So I was like, okay. And then to this day, I wonder, what happened to this guy? So a couple of years later, very noticeable person, ran into him and he remembered me and he said, hey, that day that you stopped me, I wasn't in a good place. And I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. And thank you for stopping, because I honestly, was thinking of taking my life, and you distracted me. And that's all it takes sometimes. It just takes, instead of walking around homeless people or walking around people with addiction, just walk toward them, have a conversation. They're not any scarier than most of the time. They're meeker, because they're like, they don't want to talk, or they're shy, or, whatever it is. And they're like, okay, or paranoid. Why are these people talking to me? Or whatever it is. Right. Yeah. But, if you're listening to this podcast right now, and maybe you're not the one dealing with addiction, but maybe somebody who is, be that guy, be the guy who cried and helped Sterling out, like, honestly, it can come from anywhere. All you need is a flicker of hope to make things move forward. Right.
Yeah. And like, I think you, with your example, that human connection, I think a lot of people in addiction lack that, especially in the midst of it.
It's lonely. It's lonely. It can be very lonely, whether you're in addiction or just depressed like me and can't get out of bed, or you could have so many people walking around you. It's like a blur of people, a blur of strangers, a blur of nothing, and it just takes one connection, like a real, genuine connection, to really make you feel, hey, my life, if those people can see something in me, there must be something. Maybe I don't believe it today. Maybe in a month from now, somebody else will say something, and, but thank goodness, right, for those people.
Absolutely. So at the end of this, kind of piggybacks off of that. It's a little bit of a change in direction, but so the first of this year, so, January 2021, I had done a lot since then, and I had pushed my body to its like physical limits, and I tried to get blood drawn, and they thought that they used a few different needles, and they're like, oh, our needles are broken. And they're like, oh no, it's your blood, it's too thick to draw. I just dehydrated myself working an extreme amount. But yeah, January 2021, I kind of took a break. It was the end of the year, Christmas was over, made it through the holidays, and like kind of let myself breathe and let myself feel. And looking back, I realized I was just kind of running from the situation that I had come from. I didn't, I was scared to slow down. If I did, like, it's going to collapse. I'm going to lose everything. Because that's what had always happened. And I broke down, like, emotionally, trying to accept it and understand it. But it was just, running scared from all those old feelings, from all the emotions and things like that, of the isolation, the losing everything, the helplessness, or the, all these like negative feelings. Like I accomplished more in a year than I thought I was going to die with, going back to that, looking out, hope and things like that. And I was just scared to death to lose it. It didn't feel real. I didn't let it feel real.
It felt temporary. You're like, when is this all going to end? You still hadn't believed it, really. It sounds like.
But yeah, that made me feel, or they brought those emotions up, or the thought of that up. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. It's hard. It's hard to be real with yourself. And we can't, I don't know, sometimes we can't be there for anybody or do any of the things. Like we have this capacity to love other people, but when we don't love ourselves, we can't show that. Like, do you feel like you're more open now and you can enjoy the kids more and open and people around your life and because you're more present?
Yeah, that's kind of my like warning, my early warning system or whatever. If I feel like I can't connect with the kids, or I don't know how to connect with them when we're playing, if that stuff starts to get out of whack, I know something's off. And there's being sober, there's still emotional, mental things that I have to stay on top of to be able to do everything that I want to do and be a good dad and partner and stuff. And yeah, that's a emotionally sensitive area for me. And I don't mean to say like I get emotional all the time. I'm actually not an extremely emotional person, at least generally. But with my kids, that's a touchy area, and most people, I'm sure it is. And so
Yeah.
I've noticed it a few times where I can't connect with my kids. Like, I need to do something differently, check in, where am I at? What's going on, and get that stuff straightened out.
And sometimes it could just, try and you don't always have to read too much into it either. Like it's good that you have that as a trigger, but don't be too hard on yourself. Cause I mean, yes, I've dabbled in drugs. I haven't had a drug problem, but I have a hard time connecting with my kids sometimes. You know what I mean? Like part of it is just being parenting and they're off or you're off, it's good that you try to align it with that, but don't be too hard on yourself. It's not always, sometimes it's just life, and sometimes it's just because sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves more than we're hard on anybody else,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you feel about yourself now? You've come a long way.
Yeah. I'm extremely excited about the future. Awesome. I'm constantly working on habits or skills, learning skills. That's kind of my big thing is relationships and skills, and obviously education and things like that. But I feel like it's a matter of time, not a I wish or I hope. Yeah, it's literally just do the same things for enough times over and over, and we'll get to. I have a big 5-year vision printed out on the wall.
That's great.
It's a year old now, and it's changing slowly.
And life changes, so it has to, and it's good that you're letting it change, because when a lot of people they make these goals and they get so down on themselves when things don't work out, and a lot of the times it's not because they didn't put in the work. It's just things happen, things that you don't expect to happen. So, and if you can't move with that and you can't give and take, it can be really a downer. It can set you back for sure. So how do you set up your small versus long? Like, do you have a system, or like, what do you recommend people do if they've never done it before?
So for goal setting, the people who taught me how to do it, it's One Life Fully Lived. They're a nonprofit that's what they were designed to help kids get out of poverty. Technically, I wasn't a kid when I found them, but they were, very nice people. So so I do, at first it was a vision, and like literally, where do you see yourself when you're 90? What's it look like? Who's around you? Where is it? Things like that. That was the first thing that, made me realize I do want to have grandkids and great grandkids, and I want to, do whatever positive I can, at least, relationship, emotionally, things like that. And then it's seeing what you want far out and at least knowing what that feels like. And then when you start setting these longer term goals, I actually don't think I have really any goals past the 5-year.
I think that's good. I think 5 years is good.
It's pretty far out. Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, there's sprint and marathon goals, sprint and marathon plans. So you got your 5-year, you got a 1 year, 6 month, 3 months. But the thing with goals, at least for me, it's a direction to move forward. So like the very first one was the overdose. Like, oh, I don't want to die. And I know at my core, I definitely don't want to die. And that was not a realization prior to that. So that gave me that first direction to move in. If I'm not going to, if I know I don't want to die, I should probably at least do something. Whatever doesn't look like that, I want to do that. That's usually good,
Even if I don't know what that is yet.
Happy stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that right now. So, yeah, it's having that direction. I think when you set goals, you can be a little far out with them. It's better to aim really high and end up, kind of high than to aim whatever kind of low and hit low. So,
do you agree, Sterling, that the smaller steps between the goals is better, more attainable?
Yeah, I think especially in the beginning, like momentum, just building momentum. I think the book is like Make Your Bed. It was the Admiral something. It was a college graduation speech. But just getting up and making your bed, it's like starting the ball rolling in the right direction. Yeah, you're starting to achieve things. And see, I think the little steps are huge, especially when you get started.
Little Steps Are Huge by Sterling. I love that. I'm going to quote you on that one.
Yeah. And even if it's not necessarily progress, it's taking bites at negative things. There's also a kid's book. There's no dragon. And everybody keeps telling this kid he finds a little baby dragon in his room. It's like, oh, there's no dragon. Then it gets bigger. They're still like, nope, it just keeps getting bigger. That momentum works the same way with taking care of negative stuff you just got to handle. Just getting that ball rolling, and momentum builds momentum. So
yeah, we had a little monster squirt thing. Oh, there's the monster. Okay, we'll squirt him out of the room, so nice. He's gone, right? Instead of just making it bigger and bigger. But one of my very, very first guests, his name was Sean Coe, and I always say this in my episodes because he said something so simple, but it's always stuck with me. You can't take a step forward and a step back at the same time.
I like that.
So I thought, wow, he's right, And then one of my mentors, Brian Lafremento, he's Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast, and he didn't say it, this isn't from him, but he quoted someone. I wish I could remember who it was, but at the end of your life, you get passed a note. Once you die, and you get passed a note, and the note says, "This is what your life should have been. What happened?" And I'm like, wow, this is what your life should, like, this was what was meant for you, yeah. But what happened? Like, get in it, somewhere in there, and it just makes you think, if you can work backwards, like you were saying, where do you want to be at 90? Like, I don't want to have regrets. That's my huge thing. I've seen what the end of life looks like from the outside, and I don't want to have regrets. That's the one thing I'm most afraid of, I think. So now I try to live my life like that. Doesn't always go the way that I want, but I think you're right. I think that, as you said, the little steps are huge. Mm-hmm. You heard it here, folks. Sterling's quote. But yeah, because then if you the bigger the step, the longer it takes you to get there, and you're kind of like, oh, this isn't going to happen. And you just stop, right? It's just like losing weight or whatever people are doing these days. Like, it just.
I think another thing, like rewarding yourself along the way. Like, don't forget to celebrate the accomplishments. Even it doesn't have to be the biggest, the whole goal that you set. But for us, we pretty much just take like little trips or vacations, or go kayaking, or like, that's kind of our little rewards for things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when we finished our first rental property, we were still technically renters as well, but we finished our first rental property. We went to Colorado. We got super cheap tickets, and because of the pandemic, rental cars were like free in hotels and stuff. We were the only ones there. It felt really exclusive.
Yeah,
it wasn't as like end of the world as it felt like VIP. I kind of anticipated the end of the world feeling, but
yeah, I love travel. Sometimes it just takes a change of schedule to set everything back down, just exhale, right?
Yeah, we try to go somewhere with nature, just surrounded in nature, and that's kind of like how we recharge. But it's allowing yourself to feel that stuff, and that was cool. We went for like 4 days in Colorado. I can't pretend like I let myself feel all of it. But, we're getting better at that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know that you help out, or you've created a recovery group, or can you tell me a little bit about that? Or you work with?
Yeah. So
clarify.
So with like entrepreneurship, and like real estate is a really common one where you'll hear masterminds. There's a lot of different genres that kind of go towards that. It's the whole Napoleon Hill principle, where people get together and use each other's experience and wisdom and everything to add together. Like two minds are, I'll butcher the quotes, and I'm going to try. So, 2 or 3 minds together is more powerful than 2 or 3 minds, basically.
Absolutely.
That was a good experience for me when I first started getting educated and started setting goals and having accountability partners. And that all worked for real estate, for investing or setting goals, things like that. People to hold you accountable. And it kind of falls back to that you are the sum of the people you hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
And that really brought me up in the beginning, or at least it felt like it added to my momentum or my traction I was getting. So with that same nonprofit, I wanted to find a way for me to give back. So for me, I from my experience and what I see going forward and what I've learned, I feel like real estate's where I make money. And so far, so good. So my way to give back to a community where I came from, which would be, I grew up really poor. And then, addiction recovery, or just addiction. This ties into the why you had mentioned earlier as well. This is my avenue to help people not struggle as much. I don't want to drop the F-bomb, but it's like screw struggle. Like struggle sucks. Did it for decades. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. There's some resiliency to come from it. There's some positives you can take from it, but a never-ending struggle, nobody wants that. So
agreed.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah,
like we talked about, what do they leave out of these programs? It is goal setting, vision planning, financial literacy. Like there's so many people that it took me less than 2 years to get a credit score, and to get a credit score over 750. And that was minimal education, YouTube videos and podcasts, and then just setting out to do it and doing it. But budgeting, how to make extra money. So a lot of people that have experienced addiction can hustle for money, like have a sense of urgency to the art of money getting. It's an old
entrepreneurship skills.
Yeah,
yes.
It's an old P.T. Barnum book, The Art of Money Getting. It's hilarious. It's probably not hilarious, but the way it's written now, it's hilarious. So, but yeah, so if you can use those skills without hurting anybody, to increase your income, and once you've increased your income, and now you know how to save money, and you donate money, and you just,
the more you make, the more you can help.
Yeah, it's really comes down to like putting your own mask on. Like when they tell you on an airplane, secure yours first, and then put it on your children. If you don't, you're gonna pass out, and you're both screwed. And I really think that working on ourselves, putting ourselves financially in a position to not be a victim of circumstance all the time. For my entire life, a flat tire would financially devastate us, or needing new tires just wasn't an option. When
it doesn't mean you're looking for the quick get rich scheme,
No, I mean, it's some things like right now with the job market, employees are advantaged right now in the way that employers need to retain their good employees. If you're a good employee, you need a raise. Let them know that like, it's an example from here, the dog biscuit factory down the road's starting at $17 an hour, I've been showing up for so long on time,
Mm.
working and stuff. So, taking advantage of things like that a lot of people don't, think about, or just trying to make those positive changes. There's so much to talk about.
I'll have to, maybe one day you'll come back on. You can talk to us about the real estate business, because I would be interested in learning a little bit about that if you wanted
Yeah. So yeah, for me, that was just where, I had
Yeah.
to work side jobs, handyman jobs. Technically I was like a professional handyman for a while, a couple
Nothing wrong
years.
with that.
Yeah. But that was where my skill set fit an avenue that worked. And so it's, what do you have that
Mm.
you can take advantage of? And that was, for me, it was that. Instead of getting a paycheck, I turned it into equity.
I love that. You struggled for a long time and are maybe still struggling with, day by day, right? Because they say once you're an addict, it's still, and you're in recovery, it's still, a day at a time. That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's true or not, but look at all the stuff you're doing. Like, you should be damn proud of yourself, because you could be choosing, even though you're doing well when it comes to the drug addiction, and you're clean, which is huge in itself. It could have stopped there, but it didn't. You're now turning your adversities and turning the things and the struggles and the difficult things that you went through, and you're trying to help other people. And I love when people do that. It's honestly so genuine. And I can tell that your heart's really in it. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure you're helping so many people, and they appreciate it, because we need more people to see that, beautiful things can come from pain. And this is a great example of that. And it's like I always say, you want someone in your corner who knows how you feel. These guys aren't going to turn, or these women aren't going to turn to somebody who's never been there. So the fact that you have this experience and you can now help other people, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of I feel like it's an obligation to some extent, because it is hard to relate to somebody that's been incarcerated or been completely strung out and homeless or on the run, or just whatever crazy stuff that life leads to. And so, like you said, a lot of people can't relate to them, and I can relate to a lot of people with those situations.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
all.
easier to open up too.
Yeah, and
Them.
you don't feel ashamed, or you don't feel crappy about it, or you don't feel like, why am I going to pour my heart out and explain all this stuff when they don't get it? It's just a waste of time sometimes, honestly. Um, I don't know. I just feel like life, I always say this, but one of the things I want to do is end loneliness for people, because I think if you're dealing with things by yourself, there's no hope. There's no way you can. It's like that gentleman who he was one of your points, where he's like, hey buddy, I care about you, right? But I don't know if we can just, get a bunch of lonely people and stick them in a room together, and then they're not lonely anymore. We can all just talk about the same thing. And you don't have to be best friends, and you don't have to be, but you have this connection sometimes that's stronger with strangers than you have with people in your circle. You know what I mean? And it can be a beautiful thing, like, honestly.
Yeah, we've had so we're only on, I mean, just honestly, we're on the second official, we actually changed the name, Rediscover Mastermind or something. Or I created, I shouldn't say, or something. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's people that, there's a guy from Canada up there, in there, Oregon, in the States better than this. Wisconsin, like they're all over the country. And I mean, shoot, there's only 6 people in it, but in each one, but there is something to that. Like, I don't, this person's not going to tell my boss and my, neighbor and whatever. And you can kind of open up more to people like that, I feel. And we've had good luck with people being vulnerable.
Yeah, the boundaries come down, like the fear
Yeah.
comes down, because it's like you're not afraid you're going to walk into this, it's like I don't know. I remember some of my darkest times. It was a podcast, something going through my headphones that nobody else could hear except me. And I got the message really clear that day. And it changed everything. There are moments in our life that are unexpected, but are, yeah, I don't know. I just see all these, like I'm picturing your mastermind class, and it's just like people just feeling safe. And it's so important because you can't feel like that with just everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have no interest in having the worst drug stories or whatever of the group, but I try to be transparent, and I think that helps them. Like, oh, okay, maybe I thought I was pretty bad. Like this dude's a train wreck, or was a train wreck. As
Yeah.
far as me, the same.
Yeah. Because you know what? People with addictions aren't any less important or any less valuable than people who don't have addictions. Everybody has something, sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't. And we all just need to learn how to be there for each other. And if you don't know what to say to somebody because you just don't know, like in a given situation, ask them, what do you need from me? Like if you don't know, don't guess. Sometimes people want to help other people and they do nothing because they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. But then nothing happens, nothing changes. And the person who could have used their help is like alone again. You know what I mean? So don't let ignorance or a lack of knowledge or stop you from asking the questions, because everybody can help. You can always find a way to help, right?
Yeah, I've struggled. Like, sometimes people reach out to me for different situations, and at least be an example of, and not necessarily even the full, like how to, this is how you need to live example or whatever, but just of being compassionate, of being patient, things like that. I'm not trying to, say enable anybody or whatever, but being that for other people.
Don't judge. You don't know.
That's it.
You don't know. Nobody, I think it's great. I think you're doing fabulous work.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the onelifefullylived.org?
Yeah, so that I think they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary from when they were founded. The guy named Tim Rode, he's from California. He wanted to give back, and this was his way to give back. And like I said, it was initially to help kids escape poverty. And there's still a lot of financial education, vision planning, goal setting, relationships, and then wellness, physical,
That's
spiritual,
awesome.
mental. Yeah, I mean it's their core four, and it covers a lot. Most things that at least I check in on.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
Sounds phenomenal. Yeah, if anybody wants to check it out or be a part of the change that's happening around here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about we didn't get to today? I mean, I think we could talk forever, but like just
I think we covered everything that at least I like to bring up or try to address. I really appreciate being on here. I appreciate what you're doing too. This is great that there is a platform to talk about this.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's not always easy, but it's so needed. Right now, I know there are people listening that can take so many different things away from this. We talked about so many things. We talked about how you can take better care of yourself, about setting goals. We talked about it's okay to talk about your story and, how there are things missing in some of these programs. I think this is a huge topic because they really don't set you up for success. Like you said, they only deal with the drug part. And that's a whole other, there's so many big topics like we could take, from this episode. And I think it's great, but also just if you're the one that knows somebody in a similar situation that Sterling was in, be that one person to notice and to ask the questions, because sometimes it just takes one person and you'll feel good about it. You'll feel good about helping somebody else, and it might even help how you feel about yourself, So everybody wins. Everybody wins in that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Asking more than just the, how are you? Good. Just going a little bit deeper can make a big impact, like you found out. So.
Yeah. The worst thing for me is when you say, somebody asks you how you're doing, and then you say terrible, and they're like, oh, that's good. And they keep walking away because they don't listen to you, And sometimes I'm just like, I don't know how to answer that. Like, do you want the real answer? Because the real answer is not a good, bad, one word answer. Do you really want to know how I'm doing? And if that's the case, like, let's meet, let's have dinner, because it's true. Like sometimes it can just be, I'm okay, I'm not okay, or whatever. And sometimes it could just be, you know what, I'm not doing so well, but I can't, I know you don't have the time right now, but I appreciate you even just listening to the answer, because some people don't listen to the answer. Like, I think that happened one time. I had a boss who was walking in the hall and they're like, hey, how you doing? To one of their clients. And they were like, terrible. My mother died. Oh, yeah. Okay. Come on down the hall. And I'm like, oh my God, like you didn't even hear what they said. It's like, there's nothing worse than feeling indifferent.
Yeah.
To me, that's the worst feeling, is feeling that, because I have felt that from people that that love me. Sometimes you just feel that they're being indifferent and it makes you feel worthless. So just listen to each other and don't judge people. And, everybody has something. Honestly, anyways, we could go on forever. But thank you so much. It was so great to get to know you a little bit more. And thank you for sharing the story. And I know it's going to help the listeners today. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.